There's one question on the minds of everyone who just finished Andor, and of course, that is, where the f did this masterpiece come from, and how does it exist within the same fictional universe that gave us such timeless classics as The Acolyte and Rise of Skywalker? Well, the answer to that question is rather simple. 3 words. Tony Gilroy, baby. And if you don't know that name or why it's important, trust me, you will by the end of this video.
Put some respect on
Tony Gilroy's
name. You understand me? When y'all saying
Tony Gilroy's
name, put some respect on it.
Long before Gilroy utterly revitalized the bloated and listless Star Wars franchise with Andor, he was cutting his teeth in the 90s and 2000s, racking up screenwriting credits in some of the most iconic legal and political thrillers of the day. Films like The Devil's Advocate and the first 3 entries in the Bourne franchise are all products of Gilroy's handiwork. And don't get me wrong, I love Pacino's Satan as much as the next guy.
He's laughing his sick fucking ass off!
But it wasn't until his directorial debut in 2007 when Gilroy finally distinguished himself as one of the sharpest creative minds in Hollywood. In other words, he made Michael Clayton. Now, if you've never seen or even heard of this movie, that's totally understandable. It was a moderate box office bomb, and despite garnering plenty of nominations at the 2008 Academy Awards, it was handily outshone by more high-profile contenders that year like There Will Be Blood, No Country, Juno, and Ratatouille. But if you were to discount Michael Clayton on those grounds, you'd be doing so at your own peril. Because when people talk about the best films of the 2000s, you'll hear all about the usual suspects like Eternal Sunshine, Children of Men, There Will Be Blood, No Country, etc., etc. But one of the biggest crimes of the cinematic variety that I can think of is the fact that Michael Clayton barely ever makes the cut. Let's change that. So in this video, I'll give you a spoiler-light rundown of the film, then analyze what makes it so special thematically, and finally, explore how Gilroy's commentary on power, morality, and institutions in Andor was already fully formed and just as rich nearly 20 years earlier in Michael Clayton. George Clooney's titular Michael Clayton is a fixer at a prestigious law firm. But unlike the unflinching, infallible fixers we're used to seeing on screen,
I'm Winston Wolfe. I solve problems.
No more half measures, Walter.
Michael doesn't magically make insurmountable problems evaporate by simply being cool. He's a self-proclaimed janitor.
I'm not a miracle worker, I'm a janitor.
He dirties his hands in the firm's murky gray zones of morality and legality so the prestigious partners can keep theirs clean. Whenever there's a high-profile hit-and-run, shoplifting bourgeois housewife, or crooked congressman in a legal bind, Michael's on the scene. But as it turns out, the real hive of scum and villainy in the world of Michael Clayton operates far upstream from Michael's wheelhouse as a fixer, because those same prestigious partners who send Michael out on cleanup duty have spent years defending U-North, an agricultural conglomerate embroiled in a multi-billion-dollar class action lawsuit over a patented weed killer that, oh shit, gives people cancer en masse. When the firm's top litigator, Arthur Edens, played brilliantly by Tom Wilkinson, suffers a very public mental breakdown in the middle of a U-North deposition, Michael is enlisted to control the fallout and the narrative. But when he finally reaches Arthur, he doesn't find a man losing his mind. Instead, he finds a man regaining his conscience.
I'm an accomplice!
You're a manic depressive.
After defending U-North's despicable corporate negligence and greed for the better part of a decade, Arthur finally snaps, embarking on a literal vision quest to restore whatever's left of his soul and, perhaps more importantly, hold his client accountable for its crimes against humanity. But what happens when someone who's paid handsomely to forget they even have a conscience decides to go full Jiminy Cricket on a dime? A lone moral actor in an org chart full of dead-eyed suits isn't just a company crisis. It's a contagion, one that the firm and U-North have to quarantine before years of tightly woven narratives, NDAs, and billable hours unravel at the seams and jeopardize all parties involved. And caught in the eye of the storm, amidst car bombs, fairy tales, baguettes, and horses sent by God, Michael Clayton has to pick a side. Michael Clayton is one of those rare films that's just as entertaining as it is enriching. You could sift through every red box in the country and never find a more tightly scripted legal thriller. And on the flip side, you could watch every prestige drama at Cannes this year and still never catch a more biting takedown of late capitalist amorality. And no spoilers, but you'd be hard-pressed to find a better final scene in any movie made in the 21st century. But at its core, Michael Clayton is about what happens when doing the right thing isn't just inconvenient, it's bad for business. In other words, it's a film about America in a nutshell. It's about the facades we construct to make the soulless pursuit of profit hurt a little bit less, and the emotional turmoil that follows when those facades come crashing down in quiet moments of clarity. The moral universe of Michael Clayton is so skewed that the one man who decides playing defense for a carcinogenic weed killer is actually like kind of a dick move immediately gets branded as a dangerous psychopath. But when billions of dollars and the legal standing of a multinational corporation hang in the balance, conscience can't compete with capital. And sure, it's a legal thriller about power and morality, but at its core, it's a story about rebellion, about how simply deciding to give a shit becomes a revolutionary act when the system you serve incentivizes apathy. You can probably tell where I'm going with this. If there's one thing Gilroy has always understood with incisive ethical clarity, it's how institutions flatten individual morality. Whether you're a fixer at a monolithic law firm or a spy in a galactic rebellion, your moral compass is meaningless in the face of the mission. Cassian Andor joins the rebellion to fight against an evil empire, but despite his noble intentions, he quickly learns that when the scales of power are this lopsided, atrocities become inevitable, even for those on the right side of history. Michael Clayton becomes an attorney to uphold the rule of law, but his idealism gradually curdles into opportunism as he discovers that the legal system tends to reward those who turn a blind eye over those who speak out. Cyril Karn is a true believer in the Empire's ethos of order and control. His willingness to betray his own humanity in service to the cause allows him to rise through the ranks of the organization. But once the Empire's mining operation in Gorman is revealed as genocidal, his final moments of moral clarity become his ultimate undoing. Arthur Edens is a brilliant litigator who parlayed his genius into a lucrative career at a prestigious corporate law firm. The nature of his work required him to prioritize winning over decency at all costs. But when his long-buried conscience finally resurfaces, he's punished and ostracized for refusing to toe the company line. Each of these characters finds themselves dwarfed by the systems they operate within, their ideals dismissed as obstacles and their identities flattened into rank-and-file membership. In both Clayton and Andor, Gilroy encapsulates one of the most universal and terrifying truths about living in the modern world, and that is, you're most valuable to the system when you stop having values. Today, Gilroy's work in Andor might feel more urgent than ever, what with neo-fascism on the rise globally and genocide marring the geopolitical landscape. But Michael Clayton proves that Gilroy isn't just the man of this particular moment. He's a generational storyteller with the rare gift to distill the political anxieties of any era into engrossing narratives that remind us that integrity is rarely convenient, but nonetheless, always essential. So again, if you haven't seen Michael Clayton, do yourself a favor and watch it immediately. In fact, watch it with your dad, because I'm sure he'd enjoy both it and spending time with you. So anyways, thanks so much to everyone who made it this far. Like and subscribe for more content like this, and I'll catch y'all soon.